The woman standing in the gallery doorway did not know that the man who had asked her to come was watching her from the balcony above. Phoebe Langdon held her paint-stained bag against her hip and stared at the gallery part of Helmstone Palace. It felt like the gallery might swallow her whole. The hallway went on for a very long time. On both sides hung paintings of former queens. Every single queen looked bright and royal and very, very beautiful. Phoebe looked down at the smudge of blue paint dried into the fold of her left thumb. Then she looked back at the paintings. She did not belong here. This thought was not new. It had traveled with her for 3 days in the back of a supply wagon. Every mile that brought her closer to the capital city made the thought stronger. The queens in these paintings had cheekbones that looked sharp enough to cut glass. Their hair looked like it had never felt wind. Phoebe had a smudge of blue paint on her thumb, and a braid that was already coming loose from the bumpy ride. Her pack elder had made everything clear 3 weeks ago. He told her why she was being sent, not as a guest, not as an important person, as payment. Her pack owed the crown a debt of service. The only thing Phoebe Langdon had that anyone might want was her ability to turn a blank stone wall into something that made people stop walking. The King's Gallery needs new ceremonial murals, Elder Hastings had said. He did not quite look her in the eyes. You will go, you will paint, you will not embarrass us. She had not asked whether the king had asked for her by name. She thought he had asked for a painter, and she was the only one free. That was how things worked for people like her. The gallery smelled like linseed oil and old varnish. Good smells, familiar smells. She put her bag on the long wooden work table that had been made ready for her. She began to take out her brushes. She lined them up by size. This routine made her hands feel steadier. You must be the painter. The voice came from behind her. It was not what she expected. It was low and slow with a rough sound beneath the calm. It sounded like someone who spent more time outside than in fancy rooms. She turned. The man leaning in the gallery doorway was tall. His shoulder almost touched the edge of the doorframe. His russet-colored hair fell loose to his collar. It caught the light from the high windows and shone in shades of copper and oak. His jaw had not been shaved. His eyes, when they met hers, were the color of warm honey. He looked at her with so much intensity that she forgot she was holding a brush. He wore a black leather coat with gold on the shoulders. A pendant hung at his throat. It showed a wolf beneath a crown. The pendant caught the light with every breath he took. She knew that pendant. Everyone knew it. It was stamped on coins. It was carved into boundary stones. It was woven into the banners that hung from every gatehouse between here and the coast. But she looked at the man wearing it, with his loose hair and his rolled-up sleeves, and the smudge of dirt on one boot, and she thought, no. The Alpha King would not be standing in a doorway watching a painter unpack brushes. The Alpha King would be surrounded by guards and advisors and beautiful women. He would not be leaning against a stone arch with his arms crossed, and a look on his face like he had just found something he had been searching for a long time. I am, she said carefully, Phoebe Langdon, from the Fairholme territory. He stepped into the gallery. He did not move casually. He moved with purpose. Each step was measured, as if he knew how much space he took up, and chose exactly how much to give. His boots were quiet on the stone floor. The torchlight shifted as he passed. It threw his shadow long and then pulled it back. She found herself watching his movements the way she watched light sources before a painting. She did not mean to. She just could not help it. Galen, he said. I oversee the gallery. An overseer. That made more sense. She relaxed a little. The walls are in good condition, she said, turning back to the stone wall where she would be working. The plaster is solid. I can start sketching the layout tomorrow if someone can bring me scaffolding. Scaffolding will be here by morning. He walked over to the work table and looked at her brushes. They were arranged smallest to largest. You line them up like soldiers. They behave better when they know their place. The corner of his mouth moved. It was not quite a smile. It was something warmer. And do you know your place? The question landed harder than he probably meant it to. She kept her face calm. I know what I was sent here to do. Something shifted in his face. A quick look behind those honey-colored eyes. It was like a match being lit in a dark room. He opened his mouth, seemed to change his mind, and just nodded. I will check on your progress, he said. Phoebe stood in the gallery, with her heart doing something very unhelpful in the bottom of her throat. The first 3 days at Helmstone Palace taught Phoebe 2 things. The first thing was that the palace was huge, beautiful, and absolutely not made for someone who walked around with paint on her boots. The second thing was that Galen was not a normal overseer. He arrived every morning before anyone else. He carried 2 cups of tea without being asked. He knew the history of every painting in the gallery by heart. He argued with her about how to arrange the pictures, the way someone argues about something they love, not the way someone does a boring job. And he watched her paint. He did not watch the servants watched, with a little bit of curiosity. Galen watched the way she watched a blank wall before the first stroke, like he was trying to understand something he could not quite name. On the second afternoon, he brought her a set of paint pigments she had not asked for. Rare ones, a deep brown that smelled like earth after rain, and a bright blue so vivid that her breath caught when she opened the jar. "These are from the northern quarries," she said, holding the blue up to the window light. "These cost more than my entire payment. They match the sky you are trying to paint." She looked at him. He was leaning against the work table with one ankle crossed over the other. He was watching her hold the paint jar with the same careful attention she gave a brush stroke. "How would you know what sky I am trying to paint?" she asked. "I looked at your sketches this morning while you were mixing the white base." He said it without apologizing. "The cloud shape on the left side of the east wall. You are trying to paint the color of a sky 15 minutes before a summer storm. That shade of gray has a blue underneath it that no normal paint will give you." She stared at him. Then she looked at the bright blue paint, then back at him. "Who are you?" she asked, and she did not mean his name. He smiled. It was the first full smile she had seen from him. It changed his face from serious to something that made her stomach flip, like a dropped paintbrush. "Someone who pays attention," he said. On the 3rd morning, she was up on the scaffolding. She was sketching the outline of a wolf hunt across the east wall. Her hand slipped on the charcoal. It left a dark streak across the plaster. She swore under her breath. "Leave it." She looked down. Galen stood at the bottom of the scaffolding. His arms were crossed. His head was tilted back. The morning light made his honey-colored eyes look almost gold. "It is a mistake," she said. "It is a mark." He paused, folded into the design. She stared at him for a long moment. Then she looked at the streak. She turned her head and looked at it from 3 different angles. He would never know she had learned to do that, and she realized he was right. The mark could become the front edge of a storm cloud. She picked up her charcoal and began to make the streak longer. She did not notice the way his shoulders dropped, as if something tight inside him had come loose. Daphne, the palace housekeeper, was the first person in Helmstone who treated Phoebe like she existed outside the gallery walls. Daphne had broad shoulders. She always had flour in her hair. Her laugh could be heard through 3 closed doors. "Eat," Daphne said on the 4th evening. She pushed a plate of roasted vegetables across the staff kitchen table. "You have been up on that scaffolding since dawn. Your arms must feel like rope." "They feel like rope that has been set on fire," Phoebe admitted. Daphne laughed. "The gallery overseer has been asking about you 3 times today." Phoebe's hand stopped on her fork. "Galen? Galen." Daphne's eyes were kind, but there was something careful in them. "He does not usually spend this much time in the gallery wing, just so you know." Before Phoebe could ask what that meant, the kitchen door opened. A woman walked in. The temperature in the room seemed to drop by several degrees. Beatrix Greyhollow was the kind of beautiful that made other women go quiet. She had sharp green eyes. Her dark hair was swept under a gold circlet. She wore a purple velvet gown that moved like water. She looked around the staff kitchen like she had stepped in something unpleasant. Her eyes found Phoebe and stayed there. "So you are the tribute painter." Beatrix looked at Phoebe's gray dress. She looked at the paint smudges on her collar. She looked at the copper bangle on her wrist. Her lip curled. "Not a lot, just a little. I expected someone more presentable." Phoebe said nothing. "The mate presentation is in 6 days," Beatrix went on. She was talking to Daphne, but watching Phoebe. "Every eligible woman in the territory will be presented to the Alpha King for formal consideration. The court council requires it." She paused. "Every eligible woman, even the temporary ones." She left without waiting for a response. Daphne let out a long breath through her teeth. That woman could freeze a river in July. What is a mate presentation? Phoebe asked quietly. Daphne hesitated. An old tradition. The court council insists on it every season. All the eligible women line up in the Great Hall. The Alpha King walks down the line, and anyone the council thinks is not good enough is formally dismissed. She reached across the table and squeezed Phoebe's hand. You do not have to take part. You are here to paint, not to be shown off. But the look in Beatrix Greyhollow's eyes had said something different. The bond did not arrive with thunder or a big ceremony. It crept in slowly. On the 5th morning, Galen handed her a cup of tea. Their fingers brushed. A feeling moved across her knuckles. It was light and careful. It felt like someone was drawing an invisible line from one freckle to the next. She pulled her hand back so fast that tea splashed over the edge of the cup. Sorry, she said under her breath. He said nothing, but she saw the way his hand tightened at his side. His fingers spread, and then curled into a fist, like he had felt it too. After that, it happened in quiet moments. A warm feeling along her shoulder when he leaned over the work table to look at her sketches. A gentle pressure at her wrist when he stood close enough that she could smell wood smoke and pine on him. An invisible line drawn down the back of her neck when he said her name. She told herself it was the palace. Old stone held old energy. That was all. On the 6th evening, she was painting the background wash on the east mural. She was alone in the gallery after everyone else had gone home. The torchlight threw long shadows across the half-finished wolves. She was so focused on blending a storm-gray color into the plaster that she did not hear him come in. You paint like you are afraid the wall will disappear. She turned on the scaffolding. Galen stood below. He still wore his coat. The wolf crown pendant caught the firelight. He looked like he had been walking in the wind. I paint quickly because I do not know how long I will be allowed to stay, she said. The honesty surprised her. She had not meant to say it so plainly. He was quiet for a long moment. The torchlight moved between them. It cast half his face in gold and left the other half in shadow. She could see his chest rise and fall steadily beneath the leather coat. Why do you think you will not be allowed to stay? He asked. Because I am never allowed to stay. The words left her before she could stop them. Every job ends. Every arrangement has a limit. I go somewhere, I paint something beautiful. Then I leave. And the thing I made belongs to the wall, not to me. She turned back to the mural. That is how it works for people like me. People like you. People who make things for other people. People who are useful for one task and finished when the task is done. She picked up a brush she did not need, just to have something in her hands. I have made peace with it. You should not have to. She looked at him. The honey color of his eyes was darker in the torchlight, rich and deep. The look on his face was one she did not know how to read. It was not pity. Pity she understood. This was something fiercer. Come down, he said quietly. She climbed down the scaffolding. She left her brush on the ledge. When she reached the bottom, he was closer than she expected. Close enough that she could see the pulse in his throat. Close enough that she could see his honey-colored eyes had darkened to something richer. Phoebe. The way he said her name made the tracing feeling bloom across both her collarbones, warm and careful, like a brush stroke. You are not temporary. I am a tribute painter from a debt-owing pack, she said, keeping her voice steady by pure will. I am exactly temporary. You are not, he said. The roughness in his voice was not casual anymore. I need to tell you something. What? The request to the Fairholme territory for their best painter. He held her gaze. It came from me, not from the gallery council, not from a steward, from me. The floor seemed to shift, not really, but something inside her changed so sharply that she felt it in her ribs. You, she whispered. You asked for me. I saw a mural you painted in the Fenwick Trade Hall 2 years ago. A forest in moonlight. He paused. It stopped me in the middle of a sentence. I have thought about it ever since. She looked at the gold on his shoulders, the wolf crown pendant, the way every servant in the palace did what he said without being asked. You are not the gallery overseer, she said. Her voice came out flat, because if she let it carry any other feeling, it would break. No. You are the Alpha King. Yes. She stepped back, one step, then another, until her back hit the cold stone wall behind her. She pressed her palms flat against it. She felt the plaster she had been painting all week. She tried to breathe. You let me call you Galen. You brought my tea. You argued about composition with me like you were just... I was not pretending, he said. I am Galen. The title does not erase the rest of me. But the rest was the problem. Because if he was the Alpha King, then the mate presentation was real. And Beatrix Greyhollow's mean smile made a different kind of sense. And Phoebe was standing in a palace gallery in a paint-stained dress, having invisible lines drawn across her skin by a bond she had been trying to ignore for days. I cannot do this, she said. Phoebe, I am not. I do not. I am a painter, Galen. I am good at exactly one thing, and it is not this. She pressed harder against the wall. I am not pretty enough for the palace. I am not polished or noble-born or any of the things your court expects. I do not even own a fancy gown. He was quiet for a long, measured breath. Then he took one step toward her. Just one. When he spoke, his voice was not commanding. It was gentle in a way that made her chest hurt. Then the palace is wrong. She blinked. If the palace cannot see what I see, he said, then the palace needs better eyes. He looked at the half-finished mural behind her, the wolves running through a storm she had built from a charcoal mistake. Then he looked back at her face. You turned a smudge into a thundercloud, Phoebe. You are the most wonderful person in this building, and you do not even know it. The tracing feeling bloomed along her jaw. She lifted her chin and felt the warmth trace down her throat like fingertips. She did not trust her voice. She turned and walked out of the gallery. She did not look back, because she knew that if she did, her legs would carry her toward him instead of away. The next 2 days were a careful kind of war. Phoebe painted. Galen, now the Alpha King in her mind, even when she tried to unsee it, did not come to the gallery alone. He sent Daphne with her meals. He sent more scaffolding and new paints from the capital. He sent her space. She hated how much she noticed that he was not there. The mural was taking shape. The east wall showed a wolf pack running through a moonlit forest. The west wall was becoming a ceremonial hall, with people gathered around a fire. It was the best work she had ever done. She knew it. And that knowledge sat uncomfortably next to the other knowledge that she was painting it for him. On the second evening, Daphne sat with her in the staff kitchen and said carefully, "The mate presentation is tomorrow." Phoebe's stomach dropped. I know. Beatrix has been telling the council that you should be formally dismissed before the presentation even starts, on the grounds that you are a worker, not a candidate. She is right. I am not a candidate. Daphne looked at her the way someone looks at a friend who is about to walk into a wall. The king has not chosen anyone in 4 seasons, Phoebe. 4. Beatrix has been presented each time. Each time he walks past her. Phoebe put down her fork. What are you telling me? I am telling you that he turned this palace upside down to bring you here. I am telling you that the man who never visits the gallery spent a week in it drinking tea and arguing about brushstrokes. Daphne's voice softened. I am telling you that you should stop deciding what you are not enough for. The mate presentation took place in the great hall of Helmstone Palace. Phoebe did not plan to be there. She was in the gallery, painting the last details on the ceremonial figures, when she heard the music begin. The great hall was 2 floors below. The sound traveled through the stone like a heartbeat. She pressed her forehead against the cool plaster and listened to the muffled string music. She tried not to think about a line of beautiful women standing under chandeliers. Then the gallery door opened. Beatrix Greyhollow walked in. She looked magnificent, purple velvet with gold at the collar, a gold circlet on her brow, earrings that swung like tiny bells. She looked at Phoebe on the scaffolding like she was looking at a bug on a windowsill. You are not at the presentation, Beatrix said. I was not invited. No, you were not. Beatrix moved through the gallery. She studied the unfinished mural with a kind of elegant lack of interest. The council voted this morning. Tribute workers are not eligible for formal consideration. Your name has been removed from the list. She paused under the east wall. I wanted you to hear it from someone who would not cover it up with kind words. Phoebe climbed down from the scaffolding. Her hands were steady, but something in her chest was not. I did not put my name on any list, she said. You did not have to. The bond did it for you. Beatrix's sharp green eyes glittered. You think no one noticed? The way he watched you? The way he stopped holding court in the morning so he could bring tea to a painter? She stepped closer. I have spent 3 years making myself important to this court. I will not be replaced by a woman with paint under her fingernails. The cruelty was precise and practiced. It hit exactly where it was meant to hit. But something else rose up inside Phoebe. Something that sounded like the scrape of charcoal on stone. Like the first mark on a blank wall. The mark that decided everything that came after. You spent 3 years making yourself important, Phoebe said quietly. And he still walks past you. Beatrix's face went stiff. The gold circlet on her brow caught the torchlight. For a moment, her sharp green eyes went wide. It was not anger. It was recognition. The recognition of a woman who had just been told a truth she had been refusing to hear. You have no idea what you are, Beatrix whispered. You are a new thing, a distraction that smells like turpentine. He will get tired of you. Maybe, Phoebe said. But at least he looked. She walked past Beatrix and out of the gallery. She did not flinch when Beatrix's hand shot out and grabbed her arm. She simply looked down at the grip, then up at the sharp green eyes, and waited. After 3 heartbeats, Beatrix let go. If you will excuse me, Phoebe said, I have somewhere to be. She walked out of the gallery and down the stone hallway toward the great hall. Paint was on her boots. Her dress had never seen a fancy event. Her copper bangle cost less than the buttons on Beatrix's gown. Her heart pounded against her ribs like it was trying to break free. The hallway felt longer than it ever had. She passed paintings of queens. She passed tapestries of ceremonial hunts. She passed a window where the evening sky was turning the same color as the bright blue paint Galen had brought her. Her reflection caught in the glass. A pale, paint-marked woman with an ash-blonde braid and pale green eyes that looked terrified. Good, she thought. Terrified means you still care. The doors to the great hall were open. Music and candlelight poured into the hallway. She could see the line of women in gowns and jewels. Each one stood straighter than the last. Each one was placed with careful precision. The court council sat on a raised platform to the right. 4 men and 2 women in dark robes. Their hands were folded. Their faces were carved from something harder than stone. The Alpha King was standing at the head of the hall in his black coat. The wolf-crown pendant hung at his throat. He was in the middle of a step, walking the line the way tradition demanded. His face was the face of a man doing a duty he had no interest in doing. Then he saw her. She was standing in the doorway. She wore her dove-gray dress with cream-colored paint at the cuffs. Paint was smudged on her collar. Her ash-blonde braid fell over one shoulder. She was not beautiful the way the women in the line were beautiful. She was not polished or perfumed or carefully posed. But Galen stopped walking. The court went quiet. Not all at once, in a ripple, like a stone dropped into still water. Phoebe opened her mouth. Every eye in the hall was on her. The fear was enormous, but the tracing warmth was blooming along her spine and across her shoulder blades. She could feel it reaching for him, across the distance between them. I am not pretty enough for the palace, she said. Her voice shook, but everyone could hear her. I know that. I have known it since the moment I walked through the doors. Galen took a step toward her. But I would rather be here in a paint-stained dress and belong to myself, she said, than stand in that line and belong to a tradition that measures women by the thread count of their gowns. The silence in the hall was complete. Galen crossed the remaining distance in 4 long strides. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could see the pulse in his throat, close enough that she could see the honey color of his eyes, close enough that she could see how tight his jaw was, like he was holding back something huge. The council struck her name from the list, a councilman said from the platform. She is a tribute worker. She does not qualify. Galen did not look at the council. He looked at Phoebe. Then the palace is wrong, he said. He turned to the hall, to the council, to the court, to the line of candidates, to all the gathered nobles with their gowns and their judgment. The presentation tradition ends tonight, he said. His voice was not loud. It did not need to be. The room was so quiet she could hear the candles hiss. Any custom that would disqualify the woman who painted a thundercloud out of a mistake does not belong in my palace. Any standard that cannot recognize what stands in front of me right now is a standard I will not keep. He turned back to Phoebe. Stay, he said. And it was not a command. It was a question. Not as tribute, not as a painter paying a debt. Stay because you want to. The tracing warmth was everywhere now. Along her arms, her wrists, the backs of her hands. It felt like someone was painting her in light. The brush was his voice. The canvas was every place she had ever been told she was not enough. She stepped forward. "I want to," she whispered. He kissed her in the great hall doorway, not for show, not for the audience. One hand held the side of her face where a streak of blue paint had dried hours ago. The other pressed against the small of her back. The kiss was warm and careful. It tasted like tea and thunderclouds, and the impossible fact that someone had seen her. The bond blazed to life between them. A tracing warmth that connected every place where their skin touched. Then it reached deeper. It drew invisible lines between the parts of themselves they had never shown anyone else. Behind them, 2 floors above, the mural wolves ran through a storm she had built from a mistake. Ahead of them, the great hall stood watching, and the palace, for the first time in a very long time, felt like it might finally be getting something right. 3 months later, the gallery wing of Helmstone Palace was completely changed. Where blank stone had stretched between old paintings, Phoebe's murals now covered every wall. The east wall showed a wolf pack running through a moonlit forest. The storm clouds above them looked full of movement. The west wall showed a ceremonial fire with people gathered around it. Their faces were turned toward a shared warmth. The ceiling, which she had added to the original job after Galen had the scaffolding extended without being asked, showed a sky at the exact moment between sunset and moonrise. The 2 lights met in a wash of copper and violet. She was standing on the gallery floor, her head tipped back to look at the ceiling, when she heard familiar footsteps behind her. "You are going to hurt your neck," Galen said. "I am admiring my own work. It is the one bit of pride I will allow myself." He stopped beside her and tipped his head back to match hers. They stood side by side, looking up at the painted sky. Their shoulders touched. "The Fenwick group arrives tomorrow." 3 of them asked specifically to see the gallery before any official business. "They want to see the murals?" "They want to see the murals." He paused. The ambassador specifically asked to meet the artist. He said the moonlit forest made him change his mind about the border taxes. Phoebe lowered her chin and looked at him. His russet hair was getting long again. It curled a little at his collar. His honey-colored eyes were soft in the gallery light. "Your murals are doing diplomacy," he said. "My murals are doing nothing of the sort. The ambassador is simply a man with good taste." He laughed. The sound filled the gallery and bounced off the painted wolves, and the ceremonial fire, and the sky she had built above them. She leaned into his side and felt the tracing warmth hum along her arm where it pressed against his. "Beatrix sent a formal letter of congratulations," Galen said. Phoebe raised one eyebrow. "Did she?" "She asked for a mural for her family's estate. She was very specific about wanting the artist who painted the Helmstone gallery. I would rather paint a wall with my eyes closed. I told her you were fully booked for the next 2 years, which you are, by the way. The southern hall, the council chamber, and the nursery wing." "The nursery wing does not have any nurseries. Not yet." His voice was light, but the look he gave her was not. The warmth in it made her cheeks flush, in a way that had nothing to do with the temperature of the gallery. "Daphne sent a message," Phoebe said, changing the subject before her face caught fire. "She wants to know if we are eating in the main hall tonight, or if she should send dinner to the gallery again." "What did you tell her?" "I told her that the Alpha King would eat wherever I told him to eat, because the palace adjusts to me now, not the other way around." He turned to face her. The wolf-crown pendant caught the last of the evening light through the high windows. "You are correct," he said softly. "The palace adjusts to you." She reached up and touched the pendant at his throat. The tracing warmth bloomed beneath her fingertips. She felt it travel through them both. A quiet line drawn between 2 people who had learned to read each other the way she read a blank wall. With patience, with attention, with the understanding that the best marks were the ones you did not plan for. He pressed his forehead to hers. She closed her eyes. Outside the gallery windows, the sky was doing exactly what she had painted. Sunset meeting moonrise. 2 lights finding each other at the exact moment they were both needed. The palace had been wrong once. It was not wrong anymore. A special note for you, what we can learn from Phoebe's story. This story is about a painter who felt she was not good enough for a palace, for a king, or for a happy ending. But she was wrong about herself. Here are some important things we can learn from Phoebe Langdon. Your value does not come from fancy clothes or noble titles. Phoebe had paint on her boots and a simple gray dress. But she had something better than jewels or gold. She had a talent she worked hard to build. She could turn a blank wall into something beautiful. Every person has a talent or a skill. Maybe you can solve math problems quickly. Maybe you are kind to others. Maybe you can make people laugh. Those things are worth more than any title. Never let anyone tell you that you are not enough because of how you look or what you own. A mistake can become something wonderful. When Phoebe's hand slipped and made a dark streak on the plaster, she thought she had ruined her work. But Galen told her to leave it and fold it into the design. That mistake became the front edge of a storm cloud. In real life, we all make mistakes. You might fail a test. You might say something wrong. You might drop something you were working on. But mistakes do not have to be the end. Sometimes a mistake can teach you something new. Sometimes you can turn that mistake into something even better than what you planned. Do not be afraid of mistakes. Learn from them and keep going. Being afraid does not mean you are weak. When Phoebe walked into the great hall, she was terrified. Her heart was pounding. Her voice shook. But she walked in anyway. Fear is normal. Everyone feels afraid sometimes. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is feeling afraid and doing the right thing anyway. If you are scared to try out for the school play, or to raise your hand in class, or to stand up for a friend, remember Phoebe. Terrified means you still care, and caring is a good thing. Traditions should be fair to everyone. The mate presentation tradition said that tribute workers like Phoebe could not be considered. That was not fair. Galen ended that tradition because it was wrong. Sometimes we follow rules or customs just because that's how it has always been done. But it is important to ask, is this fair? Does this hurt anyone? Does this leave good people out? If a rule is unfair, we can work to change it. Even one person can stand up and say, this is wrong, and we should do better. Someone will see your worth if you show who you truly are. Phoebe did not pretend to be someone she was not. She did not wear a fancy gown or put on false airs. She showed up as herself, paint on her hands, braid coming loose, heart full of doubt. And Galen saw her. He saw her talent, her courage, and her heart. The right people will love you for who you really are, not for a costume you wear. Be yourself. Your real self is enough. You belong wherever you choose to belong. At the beginning, Phoebe felt like she did not belong in Helmstone Palace. By the end, she belonged there because she chose to stay. You do not need permission from others to take up space in this world. You do not need to be invited to belong. If you are kind, if you work hard, if you treat others with respect, you belong. Period. So the next time you feel like you are not enough, or the next time you make a mistake, or the next time you are scared to walk into a room, remember Phoebe Langdon. Remember the painter with paint on her boots and a thundercloud in her heart. She turned a mistake into a storm. She turned fear into courage. And she learned that she belonged exactly where she was. Thank you so much for watching this story. Please like this video, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and kindly subscribe to the channel. The channel posts new videos like this every day. Thank you, and see you on the next video.